Spooky Empire. Thanks for coming out this weekend. I know we had to change the date and everything, but it looked like it came out pretty good, man, right? You guys enjoying yourselves? See a bunch of great Kiss fans out here. You know, I'm a huge Kiss fan, so I'm looking forward to our next guest that I'm going to be bringing out to do this Q&A. I've seen him many, many times in concert, and I'm very excited to do this interview. So let's bring him out. Let's put your hands together for Bruce Kulick. Thanks, Bruce, for coming.
Oh, no problem. Is this my microphone? Yes. All right, hang on. Let me get comfy, like I'm in my living room or something. Yeah, no, it's tea actually. But and by the way, I'm very, very excited that he was able to reschedule and you guys came. So I want to give you give yourself a round of applause for that, because it is always hard to change these kind of events with all the scheduling.
Of course, and to defense of your band Kiss, I learned from the band Kiss to keep moving, keep going, keep going and make it happen. Even when things stop, you just got to keep going, and that's what you learn about that great band.
There's certainly the you don't want to take no for an answer kind of vibe.
Absolutely.
Which I've certainly learned. Well, I took a lot of different life values and work ethics from working in the band. But I gotta say that if you don't believe that you could pull it off, so I'm always very proud of him. I remember when he used to do shows ages ago that were much smaller, and what you've grown into. So I'm very happy for you, actually.
Thank you. So the first question I want to ask is, I want to talk to you about in the beginning of when you got into the band, and I want to talk to you about the one night you were not in the band. And I just want to talk to you because I was there and you were there.
Okay.
But it's in the beginning of the Animalized tour. You did the beginning of the Animalized tour in Europe, right? Did you do all the rehearsals for that?
Yeah, so when I did the ghost guitar work on Animalized, instead of my brother Bob, I was very excited, of course, and I was kind of nervous, but I came in, I did what I had to do. It was only Paul and I with the engineer. And even though it was for, oddly enough, one of both Gene's songs, which is kind of weird, but that was kind of that period where I guess Gene was still taking off. And then before I left, and he was happy with what I did, he said, "Don't cut your hair." And I'm like, what does this have to do with a ghost guitar work? It wouldn't matter if I didn't have any hair. What's the difference? But I think they were aware that Mark St. John was having a health issue. And all of a sudden, within probably 6 weeks from that, summertime session, they were planning the tour all along, of course. I get a call from the office saying, hey, they'd like you to go to Europe with them. Might be only for 2 weeks, might be for the entire 6 weeks, okay? And of course, I thought I won the lottery. It was crazy. I never expected to be in the band, as a real member. I was just thrilled to be temporary even, and to think that could have turned into, which it did, to 12 years is really a great, great miracle that I'm so blessed about. But I think they realized once Mark did get better, because he had this arthritic condition where his hand got swollen, which is, obviously he can't play guitar. And then when he healed by the time we came back from Europe. And I was feeling pretty good about the gig. I know Gene would make comments saying like, great vibrato, good playing, things like that. But again, the gig wasn't mine. They signed him. He's on the back of the Animalized album. He does the video for Heaven's on Fire. He's the new guy, And they told me, look, Mark will be with us in America, and we're gonna give him a shot, And I was always just thrilled to even be there just for whatever it was gonna be. I kept a very positive attitude. Now, sometimes I think how ironic I could have done the Nancy Carrick, those ice skater things where they take out the other person.
That's what I want to talk to you about.
I was cool about it, though.
Because I went to that show in Poughkeepsie, New York, the one that you didn't play, and you were there. Yes. What were you doing? Were you in the costume on the sidelines?
So, I'm going to do a real deep dive when I get into. I'm going to write a book in 2025. I've already been getting my materials together, but it's a little confusing what happened during the Animalized tour. And I'm not sure if all the facts are right, but this is what I remember, and since it was my life, I'm going with it, okay? So that they let Mark do a half a show the first time they tried, okay? And so it's kind of weird. It's almost like, bringing in the pitch hitter, you know what I mean, or whatever, or changing pitchers in the middle of the game. And then I would finish the show, or it might have been vice versa. I don't remember that. But I always remember that there were 2 half shows and then a full show, and then they sent them home. But that doesn't line up exactly with the schedule that I see, but either way, I know that they weren't happy when he did the show. I think you saw
the Poughkeepsie one. But I'm going to tell you something very interesting about that.
Maybe I'm going to get the mystery solved here with him.
So I caught a guitar pick that night from Mark St. John.
Right.
And the guitar pick only had Kiss on one side, and there was nothing.
Mine did too. There were no
so
signature picks for him, and then obviously I wasn't really in the band, so I just had Kiss picks that were white.
And all the merchandise was with Mark.
Yes.
Right, but then you guys came back to the Meadowlands, and I went to that show.
Yep.
You were on all the merchandise now.
Yeah.
You were on everything. So now you're in the band now.
Yep.
And now you're official.
Yes.
So that's where I want to start getting into that now that you're officially now in Kiss. You're doing the MTV live concert. You're doing the Animalized.
Right.
Now everybody knows Bruce Kulick is the new guitar player for Kiss.
Mm-hmm.
So
that was pretty exciting. And actually the timeline was really weird. Of course, once they realized Bruce is better, now we gave him a shot. I give it to Gene and Paul for at least giving him a shot at the gig. Maybe that was business or lawyer people said, no, you have a contract, you got to let him, you have to decide this way. I don't really know the psychology behind it or the legality, but obviously when I got that phone call, I kind of saw it on stage. I saw Gene and Paul not happy, okay? And I always felt that Mark was so talented, but not really, I don't think like his style of playing was really appropriate for Kiss, which was interesting. And I felt like their choice of him was actually part of that, maybe when they would occasionally be too influenced by a trend. And they wanted a flashy, fast guitar player. Well, I always felt like I was able to bring to the band a combination of who they were and came from, meaning a much more straight ahead, bluesy kind of rock playing.
I totally agree.
And then some of the flash.
I totally agree. I feel that you fit the band perfect at that time.
Exactly.
That's a great era of history that people don't give a lot of respect to, and it's a great period of time. And you fit the perfect era of that time because. And no offense on you at all, but you did not get in Paul Stanley's way. You get what I'm talking about?
Yeah, sure.
Where Vinnie Vincent did, and all these other people did, and Paul was on fire, and he doesn't even take credit for it. Paul was at his best.
Well, he was really towing the line for the band because Gene, without makeup. Well, you saw what he wore, especially for Asylum. He got really lost, I mean, good with the glam. But the point is, Gene had, when the makeup came off, forgetting anything to do about clothing snafus and the look, I think his enthusiasm for the band went down a little bit, and he was being seduced by being a very ambitious man, and he truly is. Works every day, and he just loves doing it, and he's so good at everything that he tries, even though he also doesn't care if something fails, which is a good lesson to learn. You try as much as you can, but you don't expect them all to fly, but at least he's trying. So he started to dabble in movies. Some of them were kind of weird, some of them were good. And I think his attention towards Kiss, Paul was pretty upset about that. So Paul was really steering the ship. He was very, very driven to keep it on.
But Paul was great.
Yeah, no, Paul was
like his
absolutely.
Vocal ability and he was amazing on stage.
Yes.
And there was one thing that always bothered me about the group at that time is Eric Carr was such an amazing drummer. Like he was so good, and they didn't focus on that. Like they should have let him do some more. You know?
I mean, you're never going to quite get the attention that you'd want if you're the new guy. All right. Yeah. My attitude was always, I'm just going to do the best I can to play guitar, bring whatever abilities, and to fit. Really, that was my goal. And clearly, I know that Vinnie had a different approach, such a talented songwriter and a very, very talented guitarist, but I think he wanted to exert too much on them.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really work. In life, you really got to understand your kind of where you fit in with this thing. And even if you do know more, or you are really better than they will allow you to be, save that, learn, use that platform, and move on. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So Vinny just didn't want to sign the contract.
Well, you guys were getting
know?
a new fan base.
Yes.
Kiss was getting a brand new fan base that were like teenagers that didn't know about the makeup.
Right,
Well, they knew about them. Everyone knew about the makeup.
Yeah,
but it was a different vibe, a different. But the fans were there.
Sure.
There was new Kiss fans.
You know, every generation I've seen this, which is the same reason why, even though in some ways I felt like my version of the band was doing even better and better music, but that time, it's like the clock moves on, and okay, well now we've had, 10 years of Kiss without makeup, and what about Ace and Peter? Wait a minute, you know what I mean? And you talk about how strong Paul was during Animalize, and he was, but think about Unplugged and Revenge and Hot in the Shade, and listen to the vocals on anything really through the 80s up until when I wasn't working with them anymore. And then they went to the reunion tour, and then it just became that machine, for good or bad.
I mean, the Crazy Nights tour was a great tour, and Paul was really amazing, and all you guys were really good. I mean, on that tour, that was like, I mean, you were selling places out, like arenas and stuff like that at that time.
Each tour had its strengths, though, and sometimes, depending on where the fan's coming from, how they saw it. But actually, Animalize was very successful. I'll give you a little chronological viewpoint of it from inside the band. And it was a big upswing for the group. So right away, now they're like, oh, this feels good, okay? Because again, when you hit a certain level of success in any business, I think, if the sales dip, and when you're that high, in other words, the highs of Kiss, especially from the makeup era, when it starts to fall, it hurts. I always tell the people who are struggling to climb, well, at least you're still on the way up. Because once you hit that peak and you go down, it's always like, oh boy. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It can hurt. But Animalize was a big tick up, because Creatures is a great record. It didn't really click. Lick It Up, a little bit of action, and then all of a sudden Animalize. So now they took off the makeup, so they got a lot of attention. It ran its course. Not forever, it didn't run its course, as you know, but temporarily, right? For a decade at least. And then all of a sudden, Animalized as well. Asylum, actually, even though I really think it's got great songs on the record, the look might have shocked some people, and then the tour didn't do that well. That was a little dip, where all of a sudden it's like, I think we have some problems here. They were freaking out about, they kept changing the staging and stuff. Crazy Nights.
I don't think it was Kiss is at that point. I think there was other bands that MTV was focusing on more than Kiss.
You're always competing with the market at the same time.
Competing against, and
that's hard.
You were competing against Motley Crue, and you were competing against Poison.
Yes.
And they were wearing the same outfits as you.
Yeah.
And so,
I still always felt like the non-makeup Kiss was extremely competitive, but still much more similar to other things. And there were other great bands that didn't have another era to be judged by in any way with success. So that's why when I got in the band, dude, I was like, okay, if this lasts for 2-4 years, I'm thrilled, And they even get the 12 years out of it. And then, of course, by the time MTV Unplugged was a great gig for us to do, but it was also created to bring out Ace and Peter, because MTV wanted the ratings. Everything is about business, people out there, okay? Everything's about money and the bottom line. It's not about the love of necessarily your art. These artists in the music business are always going to want to put out good music, but a lot of the decisions are based just on finances. So all of a sudden MTV says, we'll do Unplugged for you, but you got to bring out Ace and Peter, and next thing you know, people get wind of that, promoters are throwing stupid money at them, and that was like my last big gig with the guys.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And then they go into makeup, which I could tell at that point, with the success of it, I always say the analogy of Star Wars, the way it came back with a roar. And there was a reunion tour, and they stayed in makeup, and when Ace got unhappy and left, and then when Peter's fighting and leaving, but then comes back for a tour, and then leaves, of course, that they were going to stay in makeup. you know, and when you ask like, okay, well, did you leave the band? No, I mean, it was a business decision. It wasn't like I wasn't doing my job or I wasn't good enough. It was like they could make so much money in makeup, and people never looked back. The great thing was the fact that it still fueled all new generations. You know how many people at this show, your show, I'm meeting that are 15 and they look at me like, oh my God, you know what I mean? And that's shocking because look at how many years ago, you know, was my last gigs and contribution to Kiss. So their fame, even though they stayed more like makeup until they ended it, you know, last year at the Garden, is really incredible, the 50 years. And I still think that my 12 years is very unique, very special, and very different, and I'm just so proud of it, and I could tell it from everyone that came and visited me.
No, absolutely, and I think it was a major part. I don't think Kiss, at that time, if Kiss was wearing makeup in the 80s, I think they would have been considered dinosaurs.
Yeah. Although there was that little, like, hot in the shade gimmick thing that rise to it.
But that was like, yeah, but I'm talking about, like, if they would have came out,
for sure.
Like,
for sure.
Full on, if you would have had, you know,
yeah, I'm glad that didn't happen.
Some kind of makeup on or anything like that. But I think that would have been. Let me ask you something about your brother. Your brother tried out for Kiss in the beginning, right?
Yes, he was there when Ace was there.
Yeah,
actually.
so he tried out in the beginning, and he got to play on a lot of the Kiss albums and stuff. Were you a Kiss fan? And were you like, oh my God, you're playing on the Kiss albums?
No, I mean, I'll be really honest here that of course I respected the band and I knew about them, but I was a bit of, growing up at that age, a little bit of a musical snob where, like, I didn't like the Stones. They were just a little too garagey for me. So Kiss to me, I wasn't really clear until my brother brings me, we're gonna go see them at the Garden. And it was like 78, I think. And I was very impressed. I thought the playing was actually excellent. The show was unbelievable, you know what I mean? So I was really impressed. I did love Destroyer. I remember when my brother played Destroyer, I was like, this Detroit Rock City is great, this song's great, I like this music. But I wasn't, you gotta remember, even though I'm younger than my brother, I wasn't quite that age that got really into it.
Yeah, I mean, when I was listening to Kiss, I was a baby.
Yeah.
I was like, you know, I was 7, 8 years old going.
And you, it infected your brain.
Yes.
I know.
Right. It was a whole different, vibe.
But it took me seeing them to get it, and then I had that respect. Where my friend Eric Singer actually went to see them, being another like 5 years younger than me, and he's like, in the front of the stage, he tells the story, he's tapping Ace's foot when he came up to the forward of the stage. So he was like a Kiss fan, you know what I mean? I mean, I don't think that would have changed my approach. I had so much respect for them anyway as successful musicians, and being from New York and being Jewish, I could relate to a lot of it. But I'll be honest, no, I wasn't your typical Kiss fan at the time. Maybe that made it easier for me, I don't know.
Definitely.
Even hanging out, you gotta remember my brother befriended Paul, obviously he met them at the audition, and then years later they run into each other, not many years later, just a few years later, they run into him at a studio, and it's like, oh, it's that guy Bob Kulick, you know, and then they kept in touch, and then he became friends with Paul, and Bob would invite me, go like, come on, we're gonna go see Paul, we're gonna go see a movie. I'm like, oh, okay, at the time my brother didn't drive, and I had the car, and we were in Queens. I thought, okay, we'll go in and meet Paul, and we went to see, I remember, Close Encounter of the Third Kind. Paul didn't really care for it. He fell asleep, I think. And you know, at that point, it was like real serious. You can't be seen with them, you know, out. You know, you don't know I'm Paul Stanley. And it was a little funny, you know, hanging out with him. I didn't really know him, but there were a couple of these cool clubs that were like where musicians and celebrities would go to in the city. And I remember going there also with Paul, and that was okay for him to be there. You know, they weren't going to be taking pictures and all. So I got a little bit of a glimpse of you know, the more, I guess, the domestic Paul, not the star child, you know, kind of guy. But and that's why it wasn't that hard for me once I did get the invitation, you know, to be Ghost Guitar, that I kind of knew enough about these guys how to fit in, because that's an opportunity you don't want to miss. You know, you don't want to. Of course. You don't want to screw it up.
Another cool thing that you guys used to do before you went on tour, you used to play a lot of clubs in New York, and do, like, you know, you just practice playing. Like, you just come in there and just jam and do all kinds of cool old Kiss songs and stuff. That was really cool.
Well, there were tours where we wanted to promote it in a weird way, so we wound up doing a club tour a couple of times during my tenure. It was a little weird, but and then there were times even, I remember Paul and I would be at a NAMM show, and suddenly BC, at one point when we were both kind of friendly with the BC Rich people, and then we're jamming and doing stuff like that. No, I have so many great memories of fun stuff that we did. And like I said, I think this book that I want to put together is going to share a lot of my thoughts without necessarily needing to throw anyone under the bus, if you get what I'm saying. I have so many great experiences and knowledge, although I'm not saying I wouldn't want to shed a light that shows like how I felt it really happened. But there's there's no real bitterness or anger in a general sense, and I do think sometimes people tell these stories and there's just they're so hell-bent on, bursting the bubble, shall I say. There is none. I mean, when you're in the music business, you see a lot of very intense individuals, and everyone's trying to be heard. Like going back to your thing about, why didn't they use Eric Carr more? Because he wasn't Gene and Paul, okay? Yeah. You guys see Exposed? Yeah. Edit her out. I get one line, and then Eric and I get to walk the monkey down the stairs, okay? To Gene and Paul, Kiss Exposed was like them doing a movie that was gonna, be featured on Hollywood Boulevard as some great new epic. It was just a silly rock and roll thing. But they didn't clearly, there was a script, and we got a couple of lines, And Eric was so talented, he could have sang more, actually. Instead, they just give him Beth, you know what I mean? Believe me, My I Walk Alone, I'll be real clear about that. I didn't say, I want to write this song. I kept working on the music with Gene. I had those ideas about it, backwards parts and different sections, and we kept rearranging it. We arranged it so much that I couldn't use his vocal ideas that he had, but I knew what he was going to sing. I had the lyrics, so I'm like, I know deep inside of me. Then I'm recording for a guide, you know what I mean? Then Toby Wright, the co-producer of the record, goes, so Bruce is going to sing this one. And Gene and Paul are like, no, it's a Gene song. And they're like, no, Bruce should sing the song, you know what I mean? And I was like, I'm going to sing a song. You know what I mean? Because Eric Carr was really a great singer. I just used to do some backgrounds on stage. I was not the guy. But it did fit. How prophetic, right? I Walk Alone. And then, of course, they were off to the reunion tour. The record takes another few years to come out, right?
How was your relationship with Eric Carr?
Eric and I were very tight. We worked a lot on his cartoon thing, which was called The Rockheads. I worked on other music for him to hopefully pitch to Kiss or whatever, which wound up all on a record called Rockology. And there's been lots of versions of that. And I'm still digging for more things from Eric. And there might be some more that could be used. But we were really close. The only time I felt really bad was he had a really rough time on the Hot in the Shade tour. And what happened was the manager at the time, who's a good friend of mine, Larry Mazer, you've probably heard the name. And they don't talk about him much, but he was really good for the band. He did a lot of great stuff. And he, during the Hot in the Shade tour, he didn't want to get a drum solo. So obviously Eric felt like he was just kicked in the balls, okay? Because he took a lot of pride in doing a drum solo. But to Larry, it wasn't like you're not a good drummer. More songs, no drum solo, We wound up putting it back in anyway. And then he was having some issues with Paul. So he started to get very kind of down on everything. And it was kind of sad because I would try to, like, Eric, come on. He's like, you're just like them. And that really hurt me because I am not like them. I was in the same kind of situation where we were working for Gene and Paul. So I understood his pain, but I also wanted him to look at it more, the glass is half full, not empty. So you're probably not going to be able to, maybe whatever you're looking for, I don't think you're going to find it, and somebody else would take your gig in a second, okay? But that didn't change anything until Paul.
And they did.
Yeah, well, but it took him passing away, of course. But Paul, I'll tell you when it changed, and it got to the point where they couldn't hide that there was this tension that didn't need to be there. It's hard enough to be on tour. Yeah. It was a great tour. We had great opening acts, very successful tour, the Hot in the Shade tour. Forever was a big hit, and that was great. But it just took Paul saying, like, look, either like start to be a team player here, or I'm going to send you home. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And usually when you get that speech, and now some people would call you bluff, go, screw it, I'll go home. But he loved nothing more than being in KISS, but tragically, then he found out by the end of it was later on after the tour ended, he started to have some of these bronchial and health problems, and then it turned into actually like a serious thing in March of the following year, where he found out that they needed to do some tests, and then by the time they checked him, they finally had cancer on the heart, you know, which is very, very scary because, you know, think about it, cancer anywhere is scary, but your heart is pumping everywhere, you know. So it was very tragic losing him that year, but, you know, but he knows, I mean, I'm a big part of his legacy carrying on. Loretta and I, his sister, who's pretty funny, I've known her forever. And there's so much of Eric in her, it's really ironic. And at times, we fight like family, you know what I mean? And there's a few people out here that know what I mean. But I'm the one person that's really like family to her. So that when it gets a little crazy, I'm able to just kind of calm her down a bit and then just get her back on track. So the relationship's been really like great with her, and she's continuing to celebrate, you know, Eric's legacy in the band, which is, I think it's so important, which is another reason why, not to go there, but the final show, they missed a great opportunity to mention Ace, to mention Peter, to mention, of course, Eric Carr, myself, even Vinnie Vincent and Mark St. John, and I can never allow myself to understand that there was any good reason to ignore that, okay? And it wasn't, I don't need my name mentioned that night, because I know everybody there knows history. But this is your final show. Celebrate history, all the 50 years. And the fans knew it. They thought about the future, the avatars. I get that, because that's like, now we are immortal, okay? Now we're immortal.
But do you think it was the final show for Paul and Gene? It wasn't the final tour for KISS. It was the final for Paul and Gene, and that's what they were thinking?
No, well, what do you mean by that? Explain it better.
I think when they said it was the final show, right?
KISS show, yes.
KISS show,
yeah.
With Paul and Gene. You don't think that's...
No, I don't think they ever were intending on replacing themselves. You know, they could have really done like this show, find the next KISS, right? And audition the best Gene, Paul. I know it sounds a little schlocky.
Yeah.
They might have found some great people, and they're like, okay, here's the touring KISS. They went with the, you know, this technology. You have to admit, technology now keeps evolving. So they're going with this avatar thing. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean,
but they are done. I'm not sure what you're alluding to, Pete.
I think the avatar thing was kind of a kick in the face to the fans. That's my opinion.
But they saw that as their future.
That's their future.
And they're immortal, right? Because the avatars won't get old, you know, physically.
Yeah. But I also thought that the last KISS show, I thought was to say goodbye to Paul and Gene, not the whole band thing. I think that's what I thought they were thinking.
No, I don't agree with you.
Okay.
But I look.
No, I'm just trying to think that.
Yeah, like, no.
Because why would they not say all you guys?
No, that has nothing to do with it.
Okay.
No, it doesn't. I wouldn't connect that to anything.
Okay.
Look, they sold the brand. I think you're all aware of this company, Swedish company, Pop House, who have done very well with ABBA. KISS is a different animal, but it's still an iconic band. So I'm hoping the best. That Pop House, I'm hoping obviously that they'll also want to celebrate history and not just the makeup. But certainly, I know their intention. I'm not expecting an Avatar of the Asylum album. Okay, well, I'll tell you that, all right? But there is something iconic and unique about Makeup KISS that you've seen Gene dabbled in a lot of the comic books where there's superheroes, you know, and they were able to do that, and that probably is going to be the direction. And I know nothing about anything, you know, other than I'm guessing that I get that could be these intense superheroes. You know what I mean? Because there's no doubt that Makeup KISS and this larger than life kind of image that they have been running with that can be comic book. It can be animated it can be, and who knows how else they do it. I don't know. So that's why, for me, I'm not convinced that it's a dead avenue. You know what I mean? And if it is, someone put a lot of money into something. You know what I mean? But the concept of those characters being larger than life, being superheroes.
Not to change the subject.
No, go ahead. Let's change the subject. Yeah.
Revenge was an amazing album. When you went out with a bang. That album was an amazing album.
And that's what I'm saying. I wasn't like, oh, you're not playing well, you're gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This thing was like a complete shift.
This was like,
you know?
That album was like, pretty much like one of their better albums that have...
It was well conceived, having a Bob Ezrin who was really dialed in. I know that Kiss likes to joke about Bob.
Your work was great on it. Everybody's work was really good on it.
Yep.
You know?
No,
Gene was back.
Yes, he was very focused.
Paul was still great.
Yeah, no, and then we were able to, even though Eric Carr wasn't well enough to play on it, his voice is on the backgrounds of God Gave Rock and Roll to You, and he was able, obviously we honored him with the Carr Jam song.
Of course.
You know, Eric Singer, you know, finally got to be, even though he was just doing the sessions, but then became the member. It was a very cohesive record that I'm real proud of, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I thought that album was like really good. I mean, like some of the songs on that was just top notch, and all the stuff in the '80s. Like that's the one thing. Like going to see them, that's what we missed. Going to see when they put on their makeup and stuff. A lot of us Kiss fans missed all that. And when you were with your solo album, when we got to see you on the Kiss cruise, or sometimes we got to see you play clubs and stuff like that, you got to play some of those great songs, and we were all like excited about that because real Kiss fans love all those songs.
Yeah. No, that's why when they finally, you know, the wall was broken that they would allow something like what I Can Do. It started actually with a very iconic concert with my brother and Brent Fitz and Todd Kearns on Kiss Cruise 7, and that was in 2017. And then the following year, it changed into where it was just me, with Zach Throne and the same other two. But the concept of that was clearly to serve up everything Kiss wasn't doing, which would be my era. Occasionally, we even got bold and did medleys of things that even weren't necessarily part of exactly my career, but it was Kiss that they weren't doing.
Yeah.
So they became,
you had a great band backing you too.
Yeah, they're awesome, and I'm still really close with them. And some of us are going to play again together. You guys are in Florida, so just know that there's a Kiss Cancer Goodbye event in Sarasota, December 6th through 8th. Check that out. You got it. You want to go. There's going to be there's another few surprises for the guests that are coming, but it's a great show. And it celebrates all eras, you know what I mean? The Oath is going to be played, Creatures of the Night is going to be played. I'm playing with Chris Jericho, and we're doing, you know, Brent always jokes with me that Chris Jericho has a Bruce Kulick tribute band, okay? They're not really, but his idea was like, hell, you know, I love that era. I started Kiss with that era.
I actually met Chris Jericho. We were talking Kiss one time, and he was telling me like his first show, I think, was the Animalized tour.
Yes.
You know?
And growing up in Canada, we went up there, and he loves the band, and he's a wonderful guy, and we're tight. And I'm going to actually sit in with his band, okay? And there's a lot of great things. There's going to be celebration of solo records. So look, I'm a bit of, you know, I'm able to represent my brother now for the makeup stuff, you know what I mean? Because Paul's solo record would be that. I've played songs even from Killers that Bob did, and the same with Alive 2. That was really great contributions that my brother had, and I'm very proud. I studied those riffs that he did quite intensely. They were really great. So I just love this connection that I've always had with Kiss, and I was also very flattered. Did you guys happen to see that Ultimate Classic Rock power rankings of the Kiss members? That was the title. So I'm always on social media, and I'm looking for good articles. And when I want to make it a debate, then I say, what do you think? You know, I was very flattered because I saw Paul Stanley. He doesn't always share an article. He did, that one, and he came out as #1, so I'm sure he was happy about that. Although I would say, even though Gene is the face of Kiss, if you think about the 50 years, Paul was much more in charge, because there was those times when Gene, as iconic as he is, and maybe arguably even more famous than Paul, Kiss is really more about Paul, okay? So he came out number 1. I was number 5, so I was very grateful because don't expect to be any higher than any of the original 4. Those guys clearly always rule the roost, you know, when it comes to what Kiss is about. It wouldn't have been the gig for me without the original 4. So I was pretty flattered with that. And I tell you, I get a lot of great Kiss love online. It's been really wonderful, and I don't mind talking about it, obviously. And I'll jump in there when I see an injustice, right? It happens.
You did get a chance to meet like all the other Kiss guitar players. Didn't you like do like a photo op with like Ace and Vinny and?
Well, speaking of the Unholy Trinity, the Unholy Trinity. So the same promoter actually who was involved with the Kiss Cancer Goodbye, his first event was actually Creatures Fest, which was a real risk, but he had a vision. He was throwing the money around. He made sure he had, so Ace is there, Peter Criss is there, I'm there, okay, and the Howard Hughes of Kiss, Vinnie Vincent is there, okay, and then of course the idea to have all 3 Kiss guitar players play, which was a night I won't forget, but I hope I don't repeat it, okay, that's all I'm gonna say. If anybody saw that, it was pretty weird, It was weird. There's a little bit of video out there, but that much, but it was a weird night. But I gotta say that was an event that clearly a lot of people were talking about.
No, it was definitely something we all were talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
We couldn't, a lot of us that weren't there wanted to be there.
Sure. No, it was sold out, and I gotta say.
And I know Ace is kind of like interested when, like, to get things out of him and stuff, but how was Ace's vibe that he had to play with Vinny?
So, you know, he agreed. He knew I was going to do some, like,
because you have a good relationship with Ace, right?
Yeah. We really respect each other and like each other, and it's kind of cool that we had each other's back at the event, because it came to a point when Vinny did try to change a few of the details, which was definitely a curveball for Ace and I. I'm pretty much used to everything going upside down and then trying to salvage it. So the conversation with Ace was, what do you want to do? And it was basically both of us said, we're not going to let down the fans, even though this is not what we wanted to walk into. We were supposed to have a drummer, and there was no drummer that Vinny could approve. So we had to play to the practice tracks, you see what I'm saying? Which was fine, I was used to them. And I told Ace, look, I'll do it, you do it, let's just do it for the fans. We didn't realize that Vinny optically was going to be up on the tank, you know, 20 feet above. You know, it was very weird. The whole night, strange lighting. I felt like I was in a bad sci-fi Borg, you know, a cube or something on stage. It was very weird. But we got through it, and it was, like I said, it's not something I think would be repeated. But it happened. That's all I could say.
Yeah, that's interesting that, like.
And then I played with Peter Criss the following day, which was kind of cool.
But it's kind of interesting that Ace let that happen.
No, Ace, again, I
guess for the fans, right?
And I
That's
think
pretty awesome of him.
He wanted to do it for the fans. He knew he'd be playing with me, so it's not just him. And you know what's really funny? At the end, the last song was actually, I think, Deuce, and he said, you play on the way out. Play all the licks on the way out. I said, sure. And then something happened to his amp where it went off. You know, sometimes those Marshall amps, and you play as loud as Ace, easy. The speaker cable popped out probably because it went off. So now it's just the track, meaning drums. There was a live bass player who sang, and he was good. And there's me. Meanwhile, Vinny's supposed to be playing, but I don't even hear another guitar, and I'm just like, I'm doing the riffs, and I'm looking at Ace, where are you? And I realized his amp, something happened, but I didn't hear Vinny play. I know he played on the first song with me, because I could hear that. So I don't know if he was even playing, but he's up there, you know, it's kind of like the Borg, the Borg Queen or something like that. I don't know. It was very weird, whatever she was called. It was very odd, very odd. But we got through it, like I said.
Awesome. Hey guys, do you guys want to ask some questions?
Yeah, that they do.
All right, let's get up here and let's ask some questions out here. The microphone's over there. If you guys want to get in line and ask some questions.
You're making them move. Oh no.
Oh no.
I've never seen Joe move so fast. I got him out of his scooter for a question. I love it.
It's hard to walk a little bit.
You could have asked it at my table, you know.
Well, I wanted to be special.
No, you wanted to be special. All right, who do we got first?
Hey Bruce, this is Troy.
Hey Troy.
Hey, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay, this is kind of a two-part question. It's about Carnival of Souls. So number one, if you have a favorite song on that album that would be considered a single if it was back then, and was there supposed to be a different album cover?
Well, I'll answer I'll go in order. I do like Jungle only because I do feel it was maybe, it was rock, but it was maybe a little more accessible because some of the other stuff was very dark and crazy, but grungy maybe you want to call it. And I'm not going to say I Walk Alone, even though I do love that song, okay? But probably Jungle, and that was the radio song they chose. I didn't have any input, and it did quite well actually, which was nice. We have a Metal Edge award for that, like best radio song of the year. So the cover, Gene threw around some ideas, which you've probably seen the artwork for, like the zippered head and things like that. He was working with a graphics person who had some ideas. And it wasn't necessarily even called Carnival of Souls. At one time, it might have been called Head. We weren't really sure. Because in the middle of recording the record is when they knew they were going to do the reunion tour, and the attention span went to, the reunion tour, obviously. So ultimately, even though nothing was totally decided, when they realized the record company paid for the record and we're going to put it out, and I remember Paul very clearly telling me, we're going to put it out. They had to wait until after the reunion tour was over. I know Ace and Peter didn't want it to come out, but okay, go buy the record. You know what I mean? Record companies spent a lot of money on it. So that's one that did stick. The Carnival of Souls, final session. And really the only band photo we did at that era was to promote that we were in the studio with like Metal Edge, magazine, and it was that picture in the in the studio. And that became the vibe of that album cover. I'm just happy it came out. Thank the Lord. Good or bad.
That's a great album.
Yeah,
Thank
you.
you.
Okay.
Testing, make sure the mic is live. All right, Bruce, my name's Shane, so I got kind of a hard hitter right from Mr. Sinkin' Stanley for you, is that all right?
He's a Sinkin' Stanley buddy. Go ahead, go for it.
All right, Bruce, so Mr. Sinkin' Stanley wanted me to ask, what do you think about the fact that Paul was lip-syncing on the End of the Road tour, specifically to some of those songs that you were a part of in the 80s, like Crazy Nights?
I didn't study I know there were people doing video proof and the whole thing, and I know that there's plenty of video out there that shows what was happening with backing tracks. I know at one point Doc McGee finally, let it out that was happening, and I always felt like, quite honestly, Kiss is much more than just that, and they wanted to do this show, and they were going to try to do it any way they did. And it's not fair for me to judge on it. All I know is they made a lot of people happy. I do prefer when people, I know John Bon Jovi doesn't want to, perform if he can't sing. But I can't fault Paul for going out there and putting on a hell of a show, even if it was with some of the help, shall we say, okay? So it was a weird thing, and I always feel bad for the singers that were known for these high register things to carry on. But I know that this podcast has had a lot of fun with it, and recently he just did, Sinkin' Stanley did a funny one with me through AI. When I
wonder who made that.
Yeah, it was very funny. Yeah, I wonder. It was just kind of interesting that I got into a fight about Eric Carr, actually. You know what I mean? But it's parody, it's humor, and what can I say? It's freedom of speech. You know what I mean? But no matter how anyone wants to look at it, Paul Stanley's an icon, and he's always going to be loved by everybody. And I'm just grateful that they did finally wrap up, and there's history is now the 50 years, and that's done. So I don't agree with you. There's no more Gene and Paul doing shows, okay, with other people or whatever. But send my best to the crew there, okay?
Thank you very much,
Okay,
Bruce.
you got it.
Hey, Bruce. I know you've gotten a million questions over the years about, I guess, imagining what your makeup might have been at it. But
That question, yeah.
yes, so obviously, Eric got the Fox and Vinny got the Ankh Warrior. Had you ever thought about having a persona more than makeup like that, if you had one? And then follow up to that, if the reunion tour had imploded and things went really bad with Ace, were you kind of imagining yourself being on standby and having to take on some kind of makeup at that point, either
Right.
his or your own?
Yeah, I'll start with that part of the question. I was a bit, look, I always missed being in Kiss, though I had no real love to necessarily become the spaceman, okay? I really would have thought that would have been awkward for me. I was petrified to think of performing in shoes like that or putting on makeup. And my era, I wasn't given a script to be Ace, you know what I mean? And then suddenly, I think it was pretty obvious, especially with the choice of Tommy Thayer ultimately, which was definitely the right thing to do, to carry on what the spaceman role was, you know. And Tommy played his stuff very well, and he could shoot the rockets and everything. So as much as I missed being in the band, I was very relieved not to be the spaceman, because I just think it would have pooped on my era, okay? Just a literal big poop on it, okay? Now, surely I could have played, you know, maybe Crazy Nights better than how they were doing it, or doing it more accurately with a guitar like that, but it would be as the spaceman. It's just awkward, okay? And then getting to the other point, you know, it was always a joke to me. I knew it was very hard. You know, the torture they had to get Eric Carr a proper one, and they changed it at the last second. Thankfully, it became the fox instead of some bird or something, right? So I just used to joke, well, there was a cat in Kiss, I'll be the dog, okay? Because I love dogs, but I'm really glad they didn't try to keep going down that, even though many fans were like, well, Tommy and Eric shouldn't be, you know, the Catman, the Spaceman, you know, fake Fraley, and, you know, whatever the other joke was, right? So the point is, I just think it's funny, and I would have been a dog. But I'm happy I was just Bruce, okay? I'm very happy about that.
How you doing?
Here it is, the important question from Joe.
Thank you.
Joe's been to every cruise, every show.
Yes,
In fact,
and convention too.
yes, he's been in every documentary about any rock band. Here he is. Go ahead, go.
But anyway, I know it's hard to sell DVDs and CDs and these days with streaming, but how about a music video collection of every video that's ever come, that Kiss ever did? I know Motley Crue's done it. Do you know anything about that?
No, I mean, there's certain things that I don't understand about Kiss that maybe a pop house will change, you know? Meaning, I think there's a strong desire for people to see video of all eras and maybe more compilations, a Kissology 4 and 5, and why it's always not happening, I don't know. Now, if it's a business decision, I don't understand, because it's not that expensive to put it out, unless there's a lot of rights issues, and I think you're aware of that, licensing. But if you really feel, you could always like float it out there to the fans, do you want this? Then we'd know what kind of license we'd need. So I really hope that they explore more of that. And there's a lot of stuff out there. There really is a huge archive. I know A&E had a lot of stuff to look at. And then, by the way, that whole 2-part Kisstory show was terrific. Fortunately, I wound up in it. But I just wish they would do some stuff with things. And on another note, beyond your question is, I have a lot of audio things that I know Tommy Thayer knew and Gina Paul knew that I had from Revenge and Carnival of Souls, that if they, even from Crazy Nights and Hot in the Shade demos and different things, that if they wanted to do more deluxe things where, like they did with Creatures, you know, I'm not acting like, you know, no, you have to now, you know, pay me $1 million for it. I'm just like, you know, I've preserved it, I've protected it, it's there. Get it out there, share it with the fans, you know what I mean? And it's not that I'm holding it hostage. They haven't asked. You see what I mean? And that just blows my mind. I want to celebrate Kiss with all of you. This isn't like something, but I can't figure it out. You know what I mean? I don't know. But maybe, like again, maybe Pop House will have a broader view of all the years and all the possibilities of how to entertain. Because I know what it's like. You guys are having an insatiable appetite for Kiss, like I do for the, you know, many years I probably have just about every Beatle record. And then later in life, I got into, I want every Frank Sinatra record, okay, seriously. And I understand the depth of that passion to get everything and collect everything, but I just know you guys should be aware, there's so much more stuff out there. Why it's not out there? Scratch my head, that's all I could say. I don't get it, okay? I think there could be more Sinatra stuff out there too, but whatever.
All right, this is the last question. Make it a good one.
All right, so my introduction to Creatures of the Night was the 83 issue, and you were on the cover. What were your thoughts on being on the cover of the album you didn't play on? And
Well, I was happy to be there. It was nice to think, oh, my face will be on the cover of a Kiss record. But then all the rumors and all the issues, oh, it was redone and Bruce didn't, and all that was nonsense. What did I tell you guys earlier? It's the music business, and it's mostly driven by money. Okay, so all of a sudden, I was saying earlier how the band is on an upswing, right? Animalize does very well. They climbed out of the hole, and then suddenly a platinum record and things like that, and then the record company's going, wait a minute, that Creatures of the Night, it's going to resell. But maybe now without the makeup, which just made this really weird release without the makeup on the cover. And I remember the photo shoot, and I'm just there for the ride. It didn't matter. But did it really matter? Did they sell a few more copies? No, you collectors have all the rare, whatever it was, and it wasn't a lot. But it was just done for money, you know what I mean? And I certainly wasn't going to raise the flag and be like, this is dishonest to the fans. I'm not on the record. No. You know what I mean? It was just like, okay, they're putting out product, and now I'm on the cover of a record. It was weird. But that's another lesson in the music business.
Alrighty, thank you very much. Thank you to Bruce Kulick, man. Let's give it up for him, man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Can I give a plug for my website?
Go ahead.
BruceKulick.com. It's very easy. And if you didn't see the YouTubes,
Check
I've done
it out.
so much stuff like that, okay?
Thank you guys so much, man. Thank you, Bruce.